I think we've all had that experience in English class where we write an essay, work really hard on a paper, and then you get to class and you're asked to pass it off to your neighbor or some other classmate, and they're supposed to read it and provide corrections. And sometimes this goes well, especially in my experience, and sometimes it does not go so well, and it's not very helpful. So I've been studying the effects of peer review in an EFL or ESL classroom, which basically means a classroom where English is being learned as a second language. So if a teacher goes to speak in China or teach in China, then they're an EFL teacher. And it's just an even more complicated subject in this setting because students are from different cultural backgrounds, different languages. And I thought it really connected well with the fact that there are things that are hard in life and have lots of challenges, but ultimately the benefits outweigh the challenges. So I'm going to discuss why being an English teacher abroad can be a great ministry opportunity, along with the challenges and benefits of peer review in the ESL classroom. So first, some of the challenges of peer review. First, I explained that ESL and EFL classrooms involve students from different backgrounds. This means they come from different ideologies, and they have different views of how to interact within groups and how they communicate in a direct way and a non-direct way, and what they think it can be offensive to other people. So students from different backgrounds have different communication styles, so that means the teacher has to balance all of these factors. So that is one of the challenges of peer review in the ESL classrooms. Even in English classrooms, you experience sometimes there's conflict between students working together, or they just don't want to participate. And students also may not be good at giving informative feedback to each other. I know this happened in my English classes. I didn't usually get feedback that made sense or really helped me. But I know a lot of people who have had positive experiences as well. So sometimes the students may not trust each other, or they'll lack training as far as giving feedback. So that's why it's important that the teacher makes sure that the class is ready for it. But there are ways to avoid all of these challenges. Ultimately, peer review is successful and leads to better literacy and fluency in English students. That's talked about in Choice study. So there was another study done by Lundstrom and Baker in 2009, and there was an experiment where one group just gave reviews on papers, and then one group just received the feedback. And it actually turned out that the reviewers experienced more benefits in their writing and made more gains in their the way they wrote their essays than the ones who received the feedback. So this was just a classic example of why giving can be better than receiving sometimes, which is true in all of life. So students, another good way to avoid some of these challenges is that the students from the same background, so if you have an ESL classroom and there's 2 Chinese students, it's probably good to put them together because they may be able to better communicate with each other and explain because they'll be able to speak in their first language, which is important because they may not feel super comfortable communicating in their second. Anonymous feedback also will avoid a lot of challenges if the teacher just collects all of the papers at once and then passes them out and you don't know whose paper you're grading. This is a good way to just avoid students being biased towards each other, and maybe your students that are from different cultures that view criticism as creating conflict and highly value keeping harmony in the group. This will make them more comfortable and more likely to offer their criticism because it's valuable. So ultimately, it's better to do peer review than to avoid it because it's difficult and sometimes, but I also just wanted to talk about how EFL and being a teacher of English is a good way for spreading the gospel. It's pretty easy to get a certificate in ESL, or it's called TESOL. You can get into closed countries that you wouldn't normally be able to get into if you were going as a missionary or like a church planter. They'll see you as an English teacher, and English teachers are really in demand. So it's a good way to get a job and support yourself and be able to travel and just minister to local communities and young people. You also you get to invest in students' lives and share the gospel by your actions, the way you design your classroom, and just the culture you create and the safe space that you will create in your classroom. So in conclusion, I never had a good experience with peer review in my classes, so through studying it I was actually shocked to find that it was really successful and helped students out a lot. And this just reminded me of a lot of things in life, that there are challenges and lots of things are really hard, but that doesn't mean that they aren't worth doing. And just as Christians, Jesus said that we weren't going to have an easy life, but that our reward is in heaven. So thank you.